I still remember the exact sound. Not the music, not the laughter, not the clinking glasses. It was a tiny, sharp catch in my daughter's breath, right before her smile fell apart. We were standing near the back of the wedding hall, where the lights were softer and the air smelled like roses and perfume. My daughter, Eileen, had her hands folded in front of her dress, like she was holding her own nerves in place. She looked so proud that day, not because she wanted attention, but because she was happy to be there. She'd spent 2 hours getting ready, and another 30 minutes asking me, "Baba, is this too much? Is it too plain? Do I look okay?" And like every father who has ever loved his child more than his own breath, I told her the truth. "You look like a sunrise," I said. She smiled, and for a moment, I forgot how cruel people can be in rooms full of flowers. This wedding wasn't for someone close to us by blood, but close enough that we were expected to attend. The groom, Kamal, was the son of my wife's cousin. I'd watched him grow from a loud little boy into a man who liked expensive suits and louder opinions. And the bride, Nigger, was, well, beautiful. The kind of beautiful that turns heads and makes people forget to look at what's inside. Everything looked perfect. The hall was shining. The tables were dressed like royalty. The camera crew moved like shadows. People hugged, posed, smiled. So tell me this, how does a perfect day become a trap? It started when the DJ's voice boomed across the room. Before we cut the cake, he said, "We have a special surprise for someone very important." Eileen turned toward me with wide eyes. "Baba, who?" I didn't answer. My stomach tightened the way it does right before a storm. Then the DJ said her name. "Eileen, please come to the stage." A few people clapped. Others looked confused. Some young women near the front giggled like they already knew the joke. Eileen's cheeks went pink. She glanced at me like she needed permission to exist. "Go," I said softly. "Just go slow." She walked up, careful and polite, like she didn't want to step on anyone's spotlight. And then the lights dimmed. A screen behind the stage lit up. And I saw it. A video made to laugh at her. Eileen on her first day at university, nervous, stumbling over her words during a student introduction. Eileen dancing at my sister's house, silly and free. Eileen singing in the kitchen while washing dishes. Something she did when she forgot anyone could see her. Clips that should have been private. Clips that were never meant for strangers. And then the captions appeared. Cruel captions. Mocking captions. The room exploded with laughter. Not everyone. Not the older guests. But enough. Enough to make my daughter freeze on that stage like a deer under headlights. Eileen's hand started shaking. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but no sound came out. And then the final slide hit the screen in bold letters. The cute little try hard. My daughter blinked fast, trying not to cry. I watched her eyes search the room, looking for one friendly face. She didn't find one, and that's when I heard it. That tiny, sharp catch in her breath. And I knew something in her had just cracked. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loud across the floor. People turned, but I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at the front table, where the bride's friends were laughing the hardest. One of them held up her phone, recording Eileen like she was entertainment. And at the center of it all, Kamal's sister leaned back in her seat, smiling like she'd won a prize. That smile told me everything. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. And as my daughter ran off the stage in shame, I didn't chase her right away, because in that moment, I made a promise, so quiet nobody heard it. Not to the guests, not to the bride, not to the groom. I promised it to myself. They wanted a show. Fine. I was going to give them one they would never forget. And the best part? That Eileen has always been soft in a world that rewards sharpness. Not weak, never weak. Just gentle. The kind of person who notices when someone's glass is empty. The kind who remembers birthdays without Facebook reminders. The kind who says, "Thank you," like she means it. When her mother passed away years ago, Eileen was still young. Too young to understand grief, but old enough to carry it. She became quiet after that. Not cold, just careful. It was just the two of us for a long time. And I became two parents in one body. I learned how to braid hair, by watching videos at midnight. I learned what it means when a daughter says, "I'm fine," but folds her sleeves over her hands. I learned how to be strong in front of her, so she could be soft. Later, I remarried. My wife is kind, but the extended family that came with her, that was a different story. Kamal's family, especially, lived on appearances. They didn't just like wealth, they worshipped it. They didn't just enjoy attention, they needed it like air. Every event had to be bigger than the last. Every photo had to look expensive. Every guest had to feel like they were lucky to be invited. And Eileen, she didn't fit their picture. She dressed simply. She didn't wear loud makeup. She didn't fight for the center of the room. To them, that looked like weakness. To them, that looked like someone easy to use. When the wedding invitation came, my wife's cousin called me personally. "You're coming, yes?" he asked warmly. "Family is family." I didn't want to go. Weddings like that always felt like theaters with too many actors. But Eileen surprised me. "Baba," she said, "we should go. It's respectful." Respectful. That was Eileen. Even when people didn't deserve it. The week before the wedding, Kamal's sister, Sevda, messaged Eileen. I didn't know this until later. But Sevda had acted friendly. She told Eileen, "Wear something nice. We might do a small spotlight for the young guests." Eileen took it seriously. She saved money for a dress she couldn't really afford. She tried it on and twirled in front of the mirror, like she was finally letting herself feel beautiful. I remember her asking, "Baba, should I wear heels?" I laughed. "If you want to suffer, sure." She smiled. "I want to look grown." That line hit me in the chest. Because fathers don't notice time passing until their little girl suddenly wants to look like a woman. So we arrived early. We took photos. We greeted elders. We sat where we were assigned. And all evening, I saw the little signs I should have acted on sooner. Sevda and her friends kept looking at Eileen, whispering, smirking. When Eileen stood up to go to the restroom, one of them leaned in and said loudly, "Careful, don't ruin the bride's moment." People laughed politely. Eileen pretended not to hear. When Eileen came back, she sat close to me. "Baba," she whispered, "I think they don't like me." I wanted to stand up right then and take her home, but she added, "It's okay. I'll just stay quiet." And that's when I realized the truth. They weren't just teasing. They were testing. They were seeing how much they could do to her before she broke. Because in their minds, she was safe to target. She wasn't the bride. She wasn't rich. She wasn't loud. She wasn't protected, at least not in the way they understood protection. They didn't know what I knew. They didn't know I'd spent years building myself from nothing. They didn't know I'd learned patience the hard way. They didn't know that when you're a father, you don't need muscles to destroy someone. Sometimes you just need timing, and evidence, and a calm face. So when that humiliating video played, when my daughter ran off the stage, and when Sevda's friends laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world, I didn't shout. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't flip tables. No, I looked around the room and asked myself one question. Who helped them do this? Because private videos don't appear by magic. Someone had to send them. Someone had to collect them. Someone had to edit them. Someone had to approve them. This wasn't one cruel girl. This was a group. And that meant my response couldn't be small. It had to be clean. It had to be sharp. And it had to land so hard the entire room would feel it. But first, I needed to find my daughter. Because revenge means nothing if your child... I found Eileen where I knew she'd go. Not outside. Not into the crowd. Somewhere small, hidden, and cold. The women's restroom had a small hallway leading to a family bathroom. I knocked gently, like I was afraid my voice might break her further. "Eileen," I said softly. "It's Baba." No answer. I tried again. Open the door. "Please." Still nothing. Then I heard it, quiet crying. The kind she tried to swallow so nobody would hear. That sound, it does something to a man. It makes your hands shake and your blood turn hot. But I breathed in slowly, because if I walked in there with rage, she'd feel guilty for my anger. And my daughter has carried enough guilt that doesn't belong to her. "Eileen," I said, I'm not angry at you. I'm angry for you. The lock clicked. The door opened just enough for me to see her face. Her mascara had smudged. Her eyes were red. Her hands were pressed against her cheeks like she was trying to hold her emotions inside. "Baba, I'm sorry," she whispered. That word, sorry, as if she had done something wrong. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. I crouched down in front of her, so we were eye level. "Listen to me," I said. "You did nothing. Do you understand? Nothing." She shook her head like she didn't believe it. "They were laughing," she said. "Everyone was laughing." I looked stupid. I wanted to tell her that the laughter of shallow people doesn't change the worth of deep souls. But I didn't use big words. She didn't need poetry. She needed safety. So I said the simplest truth. They laugh because they are empty, and empty people make noise. She sniffled. "How did they even get those videos?" she asked. Some of those were from years ago. That question hit the center of a mystery. I held her hands. They were cold. "I don't know yet. I admit it, but I will find out." Eileen looked up at me, scared. "Baba, please don't fight them. Please don't cause a scene." I almost smiled, because that is who she is. Even while bleeding inside, she wanted peace. But I needed her to understand something. "I won't fight," I said. "I won't shout. I won't do anything stupid." She blinked. "Then what will you do?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I will make sure they never do this to you, or anyone else ever again." She swallowed. I stood up and offered my hand. "Come," I said. "We'll wash your face. We'll breathe. And we will walk back in there with your head high." Eileen hesitated. "Will they laugh again?" I leaned closer. "Then they'll be laughing at a storm they can't stop." She gave the smallest nod. We cleaned her face. She fixed her hair. She looked at herself in the mirror like she didn't recognize the girl who had just been used as a joke. And I did something I rarely do. I spoke to her reflection. "You are not a joke," I said firmly. "You are a person, a full person." Eileen's eyes filled again, but this time she didn't collapse. She straightened her shoulders. We walked out together. And as we moved down the hallway back into the hall, I noticed something. Eileen's phone was missing. I stopped. "Eileen," I asked casually, "where's your phone?" Her eyes widened. I had it earlier." "Did you leave it at the table?" "I don't know." And that's when it clicked. Private videos. Old clips. Personal moments. A missing phone. Eileen's social media accounts. Her cloud storage. Her messages. I didn't say it out loud, but I felt it in my bones. They didn't just embarrass her. They invaded her. That changed everything. Because one thing is cruelty. Another thing is crossing a line into something darker. Something that can follow a person for years. My mind became ice. I walked Eileen back to our table and sat her down. "Stay here," I told her gently. "Don't move. Don't go anywhere alone." She nodded. Then I stood and scanned the room. Sebda and her friends were near the dance floor now, laughing, replaying something on a phone. And I saw Eileen's phone case in someone's hand. Bright, with a small sticker. Eileen had put there herself. My vision sharpened. I walked toward them slowly, not like a man charging into war, like a man walking toward a business meeting. Sebda saw me and smirked. "Oh," she said loudly. "Uncle, did Eileen enjoy her surprise? It was so cute, right?" I looked at her and smiled politely. Then I pointed at the phone in her friend's hand. "That's my daughter's," I said calmly. The friend froze. Sebda's smile flickered for half a second. "Oh," she said quickly. "We found it on a chair. We were going to return it." I held out my hand. "Now," I said. The friend placed it in my palm like it was hot. I didn't unlock it. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I just looked Sebda in the eyes and said, "Enjoy the wedding." Then I walked away. But inside, my plan was already forming. Because now I knew the truth. They didn't just set a trap. They stole the bait. And if they were bold enough to do that in a room full of people, what else were they hiding? I wasn't going to guess. I was going to prove. And the moment I had proof, That hall was going to go. Back at the table, I sat beside Eileen and gently handed her phone to her, her fingers wrapped around it like it was a piece of her life. "Baba, where was it?" she whispered. "Someone picked it up," I said lightly. "It's back now." Eileen looked down. Her screen was smudged. Notifications were open that she didn't remember opening. Her jaw tightened. "Someone went through it," she whispered. I leaned close. "Do you remember your password?" "Yes." "Change it," I said. "Now." Her hands shook, but she did it. While she changed her password, I stood and walked toward the side of the hall where the staff moved in and out. Every wedding has a backstage. That's where the real power sits. A manager stood near the door, wearing a headset and a tired expression. I approached him with the calm voice of someone who wasn't asking. "Hello," I said. "I need a word." He looked at me, polite but rushed. "Sir, if it's about seating—" "It's not," I said. "It's about what just happened on that stage." His eyes darted. I don't control the content," he said carefully. "The family gave the DJ the file." "Who gave it?" I asked. He hesitated. I smiled gently. "I'm not here to shout. I'm here to understand." He lowered his voice. "The bride's friend group. They said it was a surprise tribute. They asked for the projector access earlier today. And the DJ agreed? They paid him extra," he admitted. "Cash." "Of course they did. Money always makes people brave. Is there security camera footage in this hall?" I asked. He blinked. "Yes, but—" "Good," I said. "I need a copy." His face tightened. "Sir, we can't just—" I held up my hand. "I'm not asking you to break rules. I'm asking you to follow them. A phone was taken from my daughter. Private content was used without consent. This is no longer just a wedding issue." His eyes widened, finally understanding. He swallowed. I'll call the owner." "Do that," I said, "and do it fast." Then I walked back into the hall. But I didn't return to my table. I moved through the crowd like I was invisible. I listened. People say a lot when they think the moment belongs to them. Near the bar, I heard Sebda's friend bragging. "I told you she'd cry," she laughed. "She always looks like she's about to cry anyway." Another girl replied. "And the best part? She thought we liked her. She actually thanked me earlier." They cackled. A man nearby frowned but didn't speak. Cowardice was a suit at weddings. I kept walking. Closer to the dance floor, I heard the bride's cousin whisper to someone. "Sebda said the father won't do anything. He's too quiet." Too quiet. I almost smiled, because quiet men don't explode. They calculate. Then I saw Kamal, the groom, standing with his friends, pretending nothing happened. I watched his eyes. Not guilty, not shocked, not confused. Just comfortable. Like he knew, like he approved. That hurt more than I expected, because I always believed weddings were about joining families. But this was a stage where my daughter was offered as comedy. I returned to Eileen and sat down. She looked up at me. "Baba, can we go home?" she asked softly. I looked at her face. Still beautiful, still gentle, but now bruised in a way makeup can't hide. "Yes," I said immediately. "We can." Relief washed over her. But before we stood, I leaned closer. "Not yet," I added. She blinked. "Why?" I kept my voice steady. "Because leaving right now gives them what they want." Her lips trembled. "I don't care." "I know," I said, "but I do." Eileen stared at me, confused. I took a breath. "I won't do anything loud. I promised. But I will do something fair." Eileen looked down. "Fair doesn't exist in rooms like this," she whispered. I touched her hand gently. "Then I'll bring it in myself," I said. Just then, the DJ announced the next part of the program. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have speeches from family members." My heart slowed. Speeches. Microphones. A stage. A screen. That's when my plan became clear. Not a fight. Not a screaming match. A moment. A public moment. The same way they use a public moment to shame my daughter, I would use a public moment to reveal them. but not with rumors, not with insults, with truth. And truth, when shown at the right time, is like a spotlight. It doesn't punch you. It just exposes you so completely that you wish you could disappear. I leaned toward Eileen. "Stay seated," I said softly. "No matter what happens, stay seated." She looked scared. "Baba, I'm not going to hurt anyone," I said. "I'm going to protect you." The first speaker went up, an uncle telling jokes. People laughed. Then another, someone praising the bride. The room warmed again, like the shame had never happened. Like my daughter's tears were just a commercial break. And that's when I realized something even darker. They were counting on the room forgetting, counting on Eileen swallowing it, counting on me staying polite. So when the DJ finally said, "And now, if Eileen's father would like to say a few words," I stood. The hall clapped, confused but curious. Sevda's friends turned in their seats, smiling like, "Oh good, more entertainment." Kamal lifted his glass, smirking. The bride's family looked surprised. And Eileen? She looked like her heart was about to jump out of her chest. I walked toward the stage slowly, not like a man walking into anger, like a man walking into judgment. And as I stepped up to the microphone, I asked myself one final question. Do they deserve mercy, or do they deserve a lesson? Then I looked out at the room, and I smiled. "Good evening," I said, and the hall went quiet. I held the microphone like it was nothing, like my hands weren't shaking inside, like my chest wasn't full of fire. I scanned the room and saw faces waiting for a sweet message, a little family speech, a polite toast. I saw Sevda's group leaning forward, excited. I saw Kamal's mother sipping her drink, relaxed. I saw the bride smoothing her dress like a queen on a throne. And I saw Eileen, sitting stiff, eyes wide, begging me silently not to make this worse. So I began gently. "I wasn't planning to speak," I said, "but weddings are about family, and family means we look after each other." A few people nodded, warm smiles. I continued, slow and steady. "I came here tonight with my daughter, and I want to say this. I'm proud of her." Eileen's eyes flickered. I didn't look at her too long, because I didn't want her to feel put on the spot again. I turned my gaze back to crowd. "Some of you may not know her well," I said. "She's quiet. She's respectful. She minds her own business. She's not the kind of person who asks for attention." The room stayed quiet. I let the silence stretch just enough. "And sometimes," I added, "people mistake quiet for weakness." A shift moved through the hall. Some faces tightened. Some older guests leaned in, sensing something. I heard a nervous laugh from Sevda's table. I smiled politely. "I'm not here to ruin a wedding," I said. "I'm here to remind everyone why we're here." Then I turned slightly and nodded toward the DJ booth. "Could you please play the next video?" I asked. The DJ blinked confused. Sevda's face brightened like she expected another joke. The DJ hesitated, then clicked. The screen lit up, but it wasn't a tribute video. It wasn't a romantic montage. It was a single slide with simple text. What happens when you turn someone into a joke? The room went still. Then the next slide appeared. A screenshot. A group chat. Names blurred? No, not blurred. Clear. Clear enough that people could read. Sevda's name. Her friends' names. Messages stacked like a staircase into hell. I found her videos. Play the clip where she sings. She looks so dumb. Make sure someone records her crying. She thinks we like her. I can't breathe. A gasp moved across the hall. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." The bride's smile cracked. Kamal's eyes widened. Sevda's face drained. She stood up halfway, waving her hands. "This IS," she started. I raised my hand calmly. "Please," I said into the mic, "let it play." The video continued. Now security footage appeared on the screen. Grainy but clear enough. Eileen's phone on a chair. A hand picking it up. Sevda's friend looking around, then walking away with it. Then another clip. The same girls huddled with the DJ earlier, handing him cash. The room erupted, not with laughter, with anger. A woman near the front stood up and shouted, "That's disgusting." An older man at a table shook his head slowly, disappointed. The bride's father looked like someone had slapped him. Kamal tried to move toward the stage, but two of his uncles grabbed his arm. Sevda's friends started yelling, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" I kept my voice calm, like a judge reading a sentence. "This is not a rumor," I said. "This is not gossip. This is what happened tonight." Then I paused and added, softer, "My daughter came here with respect." I looked toward Eileen now. Just for a moment, she was frozen, but tears filled her eyes again, different tears this time. Not shame, relief, validation. I turned back to the crowd. "And she was repaid with cruelty," I said, "in a room full of adults." The screen showed one last screenshot, a message from Sevda. Her dad won't do anything. He's too quiet. A low, heavy murmur filled the hall. I smiled slightly. Sevda was right. I said into the mic, "I am quiet." Then I leaned closer to the microphone. But quiet doesn't mean harmless. The hall went dead silent. Sevda sank back into her chair like her bones had disappeared. Kamal's mother whispered something frantic to the bride's mother. The bride's eyes flashed with panic, then fury, like she didn't know who to blame first. I raised my glass slightly. "So here's my toast," I said. "May this marriage start with truth, not theater." Then I added, calm as water, "And may everyone in this room remember, humiliating someone for fun is not a joke. It's a warning sign. People clap, not the polite wedding clap. The hard clap, the clap of judgment." The DJ stopped the video. The lights came back up. And now the room felt different, like the air itself had learned a lesson. But I wasn't finished, because exposing them was step one. Justice needs consequences. I looked at the bride and groom. "You wanted a spotlight," I said. "Now you have one." Kamal stepped forward, shaking. "What do you want?" he demanded. I stared at him, calm. "I want what you should have offered my daughter," I said. "Respect." Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. And that's when the bride's father's face went pale, because he recognized a document on my screen, a contract, a payment agreement, the same one he had begged me to help with 2 weeks ago, when the wedding budget went out of control. I hadn't mentioned it earlier, because I wanted them relaxed. I wanted them confident. But now I lifted the mic again and said the words that turned their wedding into a courtroom. "I also want my money back." Let me tell you something about me. I don't come from a family that had extra. I built my life slowly, brick by brick. I learned early that if you don't protect yourself, people will smile while taking what's yours. Years ago, I started a small event supply business: chairs, lighting, staging, sound systems. Over time, it grew, not because I was lucky, because I didn't play games. And that's exactly why the bride's father came to me. 2 weeks before the wedding. He called me late at night. "Brother," he said, voice tight, "I'm embarrassed to ask, but we're short." Short. That's what proud men say when they mean desperate. I asked how short. He named a number that made me exhale slowly. Then he said, "Just until after the wedding. You know I'm good for it." I didn't want to do it. But my wife said, "It's family." And Eileen said, "Baba, it's their big day." So I helped, not with cash in an envelope like a fool, with something smarter. I covered part of the staging and lighting costs under my company name, using a written agreement, a simple contract, signed, dated, clear terms. And the most important detail, the payment was due the night of the wedding, right after the final program ended. That was my safety net, not because I expected betrayal, but because experience taught me to expect human nature. Now, standing on that stage, I saw the bride's father staring at me like he just realized he'd been standing too close to a cliff. Kamal tried to speak again. "You're doing this now," he hissed, "on our wedding day?" I looked at him. "You did what you did to my daughter," I said, "on your wedding day." I let that sit. Then I turned to the bride's father. "Sir," I said respectfully, "I helped you because you asked with dignity. But dignity is not something you borrow only when you need money." His lips trembled. He looked around at the guests watching him. Then he looked at Sevda and her group, and for the first time, he truly saw them, not as harmless girls, as a reflection of his family's values. This wasn't supposed to happen, he whispered. I nodded, and yet it did. Then I spoke into the microphone again. I'm not here to take food from guests, I said. I'm not here to shut down a wedding. Some people relaxed slightly. But I am here to draw a line, I said. Then I turned to the staff manager, standing near the side. Please note, I said clearly, my company will not authorize any further equipment used past the scheduled end time unless payment is confirmed. A ripple of shock moved through the hall. Kamal's mother stood up, furious. So you're blackmailing us? She snapped. I looked at her, calm. No, I said, blackmail is when you threaten someone with secrets. I pointed lightly toward the screen. What happened there, that was secrets. Then I lifted the contract in my hand. This is business, I said, and business is rules. People murmured. The bride's mother looked like she might faint. The bride herself, Nigger, stepped forward, face tight. You're humiliating us, she said through clenched teeth. I tilted my head. That word, I said softly. Humiliating. I let it hang. Do you know what humiliation feels like? I asked. Nigger didn't answer. I continued anyway. It feels like standing on a stage while people laugh at parts of your life that were never meant to be entertainment, I said. Eileen covered her mouth with her hand. The hall was silent again. Then something unexpected happened. One of the bride's older aunts stood up. She pointed at Sevda's table. You, she shouted. Get up. Sevda shook her head rapidly. Auntie, it was... Get up, the aunt repeated. Sevda stood. Trembling, the aunt turned to the crowd. Is this what we raised, she demanded, to steal phones and shame guests? Her voice cracked with real pain. That's the thing about exposure. It doesn't only punish the guilty. It wakes up everyone who stayed asleep. Kamal looked like he wanted to disappear. His best man leaned in and whispered something harsh to him. The bride's father slowly walked toward Sevda. His face wasn't angry. It was broken. Why? He asked her, voice shaking. Why would you do this? Sevda's eyes darted around. She was cornered. Then she did what weak people always do. She tried to shift blame. It was just a joke, she said quickly. Everyone does things like this. The crowd didn't laugh. Not this time, because the room had changed. The bride's father turned toward me. What do you want? He asked quietly, like a man ready to pay any price to stop the bleeding. I looked around the hall. So many eyes. So many phones recording now. Not for laughter, but for truth. I could have destroyed them completely. I could have demanded they be shamed the same way. But then I looked at Eileen, and I realized something. This wasn't about hurting them. This was about healing her. So I said the consequence out loud, clearly, so everyone could hear. Your daughter and her friends will apologize to my daughter. On this microphone. Right now. No excuses. Sevda's face twisted. And I added, you will pay what you owe me tonight. A murmur spread. The bride's father nodded slowly. Yes, he said, voice hoarse. Yes, we will. Sevda's friends started crying. The bride's eyes flashed with hatred. But she couldn't fight the truth on the screen. Kamal looked at me, jaw tight. You're ruining everything, he whispered. I leaned closer, speaking only loud enough for the front tables. No, I said, I'm stopping the kind of people who ruin others for fun. Then I stepped back from the mic and gestured towards Sevda. Go on, I said simply. Apologize. And that's when I saw the real climax beginning. Because an apology forced in public, it's not just words. It's a surrender. And Sevda, she wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. But the room was ready to make her. Sevda walked toward the stage like her legs belonged to someone else. The DJ handed her the microphone with a nervous look, like even he regretted his part now. Sevda stared at the crowd. At first, she tried to smile. A small, fake smile. The kind people use when they think they can charm their way out. But nobody smiled back. Not even her friends. Not even Kamal. Not even the bride. Because now they understood something. Sevda's joke wasn't funny. It was ugly. And ugliness looks worse under bright lights. Sevda cleared her throat. She began. Her voice cracked. She tried again. I'm sorry if... I raised my hand from the front row. No, I said calmly. Not if... The crowd murmured approval. Sevda swallowed hard. She looked toward her table, where her friends sat like statues. Then she looked toward Eileen, and for a moment, I saw something human in her eyes. Fear, because she finally realized what it feels like to be the one standing alone. Sevda took a shaky breath. I'm sorry, she said, for what we did. Eileen didn't move. She sat still, hands clenched in her lap. Sevda continued, quieter now. We took your phone, she admitted. We used your videos. We wanted to embarrass you. The hall held its breath. Some people covered their mouths. A few shook their heads in disgust. Sevda's voice turned thin. I don't know why, she whispered. It was mean. I know it was mean. Then she looked directly at Eileen. I'm sorry, Eileen, she said, eyes glossy. I shouldn't have done it. Eileen blinked slowly, like she couldn't process that the world had finally stopped laughing. Then the DJ handed the mic to one of Sevda's friends. The friend cried openly. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I thought it was funny. I was stupid. One by one, they apologized. Not beautifully, not perfectly, but publicly. And that mattered, because shame loves darkness, but accountability loves light. When it was done, the bride's father walked up to me quietly. He didn't speak into the mic. He didn't need to. He showed me his phone, bank transfer confirmation, paid, every last amount. Then he said something I didn't expect. I failed, he whispered. I failed as a father. His eyes were wet. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I nodded once. Yes, I said honestly. Tonight you did. He flinched like my words hit him. But I added, softer. But you can choose what happens next. He swallowed hard. What should I do? I glanced at Eileen again. She looked tired, drained, but she was still sitting upright. She hadn't run. She hadn't broken. She had survived the worst moment and stayed. I answered the bride's father with the same calm I'd used all night. You go to your daughter, I said, and you ask her what kind of person she wants to be after this. The bride's father nodded slowly and walked away. The bride, Nigger, stood near the stage, lips tight, eyes hard. For a second, I thought she might come at me. Instead, she turned to Kamal, grabbed his arm, and hissed something I couldn't hear. Kamal pulled away, embarrassed, furious, humiliated. And suddenly, I realized the wedding wasn't just cracked. It was splitting, because love doesn't grow well in soil full of cruelty. The music tried to start again. The DJ pressed play quietly, hoping to save a mood. But the mood was gone. Guests whispered in corners. Older relatives scolded younger ones. Phones buzzed with messages. The bride's mother cried quietly, and Kamal's mother sat stiff, staring at her hands, like she didn't know what to do with them. Then Eileen finally stood up. She walked toward me slowly. I stood too, ready to catch her as she fell. But she didn't fall. She stopped in front of me and whispered, Baba, can we go now? Her voice was small, but steadier than before. I nodded. Yes, I said. We're going. As we walked out, some guests stepped aside for us like we were important. Not because we were rich. Not because we were loud. Because we were real. At the door, the bride's aunt, the one who had shouted, ran toward us. She reached for Eileen's hands. My girl, she said, eyes full of regret. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Eileen nodded politely. I know, Eileen whispered. It's okay. But I could tell it wasn't okay. It was just finished. We stepped outside into the night air. The cold hit our faces. Eileen breathed in deeply, like she could finally breathe again. We got into the car. She stared out the window, silent. I didn't force her to talk. Silence can be healing when it's safe. After a few minutes, she finally said, Baba, were you scared? I paused. Yes, I admitted I was scared. She looked at me. Then how were you so calm? I gripped the steering wheel. Because I wasn't doing it for me, I said. I was doing it for you. Eileen's eyes filled again. But this time, she didn't apologize. She just whispered, "Thank you." And as I drove us home, I realized something strange. The revenge wasn't the screen. It wasn't the contract. It wasn't the public apology. The real revenge was this. They tried to break my daughter in front of everyone. And instead, they watched her stand back. The next morning, the sun came up like nothing had happened. That's always the strange part about pain. Your world collapses, and the sky still turns blue. Eileen woke up late. She moved slowly around the kitchen, like her body was heavy. I made tea. I didn't ask questions right away. Then she sat across from me and stared at her cup. "Baba," she said quietly, "do you think everyone is talking about me?" I exhaled slowly. "Yes," I said honestly. "Some will." She nodded like she expected it. Then I added, "But they're not talking about you the way you think." Eileen looked up. "They're talking about what happened." I said, "They're talking about what those girls did. They're talking about how cruel it was." Eileen's throat moved as she swallowed. "I still feel embarrassed," she admitted. I reached across the table and placed my hand over hers. "Embarrassment is a trick," I said softly. "It makes the victim feel guilty for someone else's behavior." Eileen's eyes flickered, thinking. "But it happened to me," she said. "Yes," I agreed. "It happened to you, but it wasn't because of you." She sat with that for a moment. Then she asked something that surprised me. "Baba, did you plan that video?" I nodded. "Not the way you think." I explained in simple terms. After I saw her phone taken, after I spoke to manager, the hall staff helped me pull security footage quickly. I also found the group chat screenshots, because Sevda's friend had been careless enough to log into Eileen's account, and the notifications had shown recent messages and shared files. I captured what I needed and then locked everything down. Eileen listened, eyes wide. "So you didn't make anything up?" she whispered. "No," I said firmly. "Truth is enough." She leaned back, breathing out. Then she said, "I thought you were going to scream. Or fight." I gave a small smile. "I wanted to." I admitted. Eileen nodded. "But you didn't." "No," I said, "because screaming doesn't fix shame. It just spreads it." Eileen looked down again. After a long pause, she whispered, "I felt like I didn't belong in that room." That line hit me harder than anything, because a father can handle insults. He can handle disrespect. But hearing your child feel like she doesn't belong in the world, that is a pain with teeth. I leaned forward. "Eileen," I said gently, "you belong everywhere your feet step. You don't need permission from people who have no kindness." Her eyes filled. "What if this happens again?" she asked. "What if people do things like this at work or school?" I nodded slowly. "Then you remember what we learned." I said, "What?" I counted on my fingers. "First," I said, "your softness is not a weakness. It's a gift, but you must protect it." Eileen listened closely. "Second," I continued, "when someone humiliates you, don't rush to explain yourself. Don't beg them to stop. Instead, step back and remember, their cruelty is a mirror of their emptiness." She blinked. "Third," I said, "you don't need revenge that makes you dirty inside. You need justice that makes you sleep at night." Eileen's lips trembled slightly. "And fourth," I said, voice firm, "you are never alone, not while I'm breathing." Eileen covered her face with her hands and cried quietly. I didn't rush her. I just sat there and let her cry in a room where nobody laughed. Later that week, we heard the aftermath. The wedding videos were circulating, not the romantic ones, the apology ones, the exposure ones. Sevda's friends lost jobs. Not because I called anyone, but because people saw who they were and decided they didn't want that poison around them. The bride's family was humiliated, yes, but something else happened too. They started talking about respect, about boundaries, about what kind of behavior should never be fun, Kamal and Nigger? I heard they fought for days. When your marriage begins with cruelty, the cracks don't wait. And you know what's funny? In the end, the wedding still happened. The papers were signed. The photos were taken. But the perfect day they wanted? Gone. Replaced by something real. A lesson. And if you ask me whether I regret what I did, I don't. Because my daughter learned something that night. She learned that kindness doesn't mean you accept abuse. She learned that silence doesn't mean you're powerless. And she learned that when someone tries to turn you into a joke, sometimes the best answer isn't to cry louder. Sometimes the best answer is to stand still and let the truth speak for you. So here's the moral I'll leave you with. If you humiliate someone to feel bigger, you only expose how small you really are. And if you're ever the one being targeted, remember this. You don't need to become cruel to win. You just need to stop protecting the people who hurt you. That night, they set a trap to embarrass my daughter. But in the end, they were the ones left speechless. And my daughter, she walked out with her dignity still in her hands. And that's the only perfect ending I ever needed.